What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the post game show. Welcome to Lakers Central. I'm Alex. That's Vinay. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our pre or post games or any other videos we post on YouTube. Make sure you're following Vinay at VKillem on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter as well at Alex Holling. And of course, follow the channel at Lakers Central 365 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So the Lakers, man, winners of 4 games in a row, swept the San Antonio Spurs, swept the Memphis Grizzlies, and tonight, Vinay, we got, as you tweeted, a 90 style basketball game, man, of back and forth, grind it out. So, how are you feeling, man?
I feel good. I'm glad that the Lakers. I think the next game is going to be at home, right? So they went 4-0 on this trip,
The Bulls, I
this
think.
little mini road trip, and it was it was an interesting game in the sense that like it reminded me a lot of the second Spurs game. So this is the other back. This Grizzlies or
Hmm.
yeah, this Grizzlies game like reminded me of a lot of we played the Spurs twice already, right? The baseball series thing is driving me crazy because I keep forgetting. I was like, wait, did we already play these guys twice? So that's all getting confused. So the next home game is the Spurs. We're playing the Spurs again, a
Oh,
third
yeah, that's
time,
right. That's
except
right.
except this time it's going to be at Staples. So hopefully there's some home cooking there. We'll have a 2 game stand at home, the Spurs and the Bulls. But getting back to the original point, uh, this second game felt a lot like the Spurs game, the Spurs second game, in
Hmm.
the sense that like we've talked about it many times that the baseball style series you get automatically within 24 hours a chance to basically like strike back against the team that you just lost to. And
Hmm.
like I don't know if for anybody who's played like AAU style basketball, or if you've ever gone to like a local tourney or like a regional tournament where they do like the round robin for the first 2 days and then the playoffs start like the third day, or something like that. Like that's very common for this kind of stuff to happen. Like you play a team one day and the chances are you're going to play them again tomorrow in some playoff format the next day. I played in a bunch of tournaments like that before where we play like 3 random teams on the first day. And then like within that day, like we've already scouted out, like, all right, this team's good, this team's not good. And then the next day, once the playoffs start, we know how we got to play them. NBA teams are obviously much more advanced in the way that they do all their scouting and stuff, but uh, I'm not surprised that this game went the way that it did. If we look at what happened in the first Spurs matchup, Lakers put up 121 points against 107 by the Spurs. The
Hmm.
next game, the Lakers put up 109 and the Spurs put up 103. So the Spurs scored almost exactly the same amount of points, whereas the Lakers came down significantly in their scoring margin, and that's because the team on the other side will play with more energy, more effort, more
Yep.
aggression, and it also kind of helps with this. Refs are like, we don't want to be here either, so we're just not going to call any fouls. We're just gonna, just let you guys. There was a point. There was a point in this game where there was like a jump ball where LeBron and I think Dylan Brooks or something like that. They both had their hands on the ball, and I have no idea what the ref was doing. He's standing right there watching. He waits for like LeBron to fall down, and then doesn't call a jump ball at all. And then Dylan Brooks gets like an and one play or something like that. And I was just like, how long did LeBron have to have his hands on that ball to get that jump? And then there was another one where Jonas Valanciunas and AD had a jump ball, and then they just kept letting them wrestle over it
Hmm.
for some reason. And then Jonas wrestled it away, but then he fell back on the AD. They didn't call. There was no call or anything. There's no jump ball, no foul. And then AD got back on the ball, and then they let him
Yep.
wrestle for like another 2 seconds, and then they called it. I'm like, what's going on with this game? This doesn't. I don't understand how these calls are going, but um, it felt like the same thing. So Lakers in the first matchup against the Grizzlies, they win 108-94. In the fourth quarter or the mid third quarter, they start kind of really pulling away and take it very seriously. And then again, 94 points last game, and then this
Hmm.
game they scored 92 points. So they played. They are who they are. They did what they did. Lakers adjusted by taking away Dylan Brooks, but the Lakers went from scoring 108 last game to scoring 94. So it's like there's definitely like a change in like the way the energy is being expended from game to
Hmm.
game. And so that's what I saw today. And then like literally 5 minutes are left in the game, all of a sudden Anthony Davis is attacking the rim
They
every single
turn it on.
play. Yeah, LeBron turning it on, attacking them. Everybody's playing like hard. You see Wes Matthews like hyper aggressive defense on Dylan Brooks, forcing turnovers and stuff like that. I was like, all right, man. Like, I got it, guys. Like, this is too easy for you guys. You're not trying to overstress yourselves. Um, the only thing I would be a little worried about is if they do that with a team and then they like get blown out or something like that. But outside of that, like I really wouldn't stress. I wasn't really stressing it. I genuinely thought that like midway through the fourth quarter, if the Lakers didn't already have a big lead, like LeBron was just gonna be like, all right, let's get out of the way here, guys. Let me just go ahead and
Right.
finish this off. That's basically what he did, man. He had some sensational plays out of the
Those
mid range and
those fadeaways, man.
at the rim. Nuts, man. It's not even like a year 18 thing, right? Because we know that he's got the skill to do it. So that's not even it. But it's just the 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 energy of this team for like I would say like 90% of the game was very casual.
Hmm.
Like we're gonna take good quality shots, and then, like some of their shots were great quality shots. They just didn't fall. Like Markeith had a bunch of wide open threes that he missed. AD had a whole after a good starting stretch. He had a whole bunch that he missed. So it's like there's a lot of quality shots that they just missed. Schroeder was like shorting every single three that he took today. I don't know if you noticed that. Like even the very last three that he took, he actually leaned forward and tried to put like a little bit more like
Mm.
push on his shot, and it still fell short. And I was just like, yeah, this is just a weird day. But hey, man, it's a luxury to have a guy like LeBron close these games out for us. But I thought, it's always a team effort. I thought Marc Gasol kind of showed us like a little bit of what happens when he gets matched up against like a post up big, and we
Right.
got to see some of that sneaky stuff that he liked to be doing. Um, but it's like I said, it's going to be a long season. We may not see a real version of this team until January, February, like until the midway point. So it was good though, man. It's a nice victory. Nice to be 4-0. Put some separation between us and some of the other teams that are in the league. But I'm as casual as the defensive energy has been. Um, I do think that they're making small improvements in how they're defending. Like I would say, like the first four games that we watched, uh, sorry, the first four that we watched,
Hmm.
Montrez was really lost in pick and roll, in his pick and roll coverage, and I feel as though these last four games he hasn't been as much. Like so, it's like incrementally getting better and better and better as the communication gets better. So, you know, it's. I really don't have too many complaints. I'm sure a lot of folks will be like, "Hey, we want to see blowouts. We don't want to see this," but there's no reason like for this team to go out of their way. The more hardcore they play, the more prone they are to injury. Anthony Davis got poked in the eye. We already got a sprained ankle for KCP. We're hoping Caruso comes back. We really, really don't want any more injuries because we're already thin on the wings as it is. So like, we just got to try and make it out of these games unscathed as much as possible.
I mean, it's clear the Lakers are coasting, and I think that
Yeah,
fans should have expected that coming into the season. What's probably the best part about all of this is that they're still beating the teams they're supposed to beat. Like the Lakers haven't had a game where they've got like, so I know the Knicks are better this season, but like Milwaukee got blown out by the Knicks. Milwaukee should never get blown out by the Knicks. I don't care how much better they've improved this
yeah,
season. The Lakers haven't had one of those games where they just got blown out, right? Like every
yeah,
game, even the games they lost, even against the Blazers and the Clippers, they were in those games at the very end.
yeah,
So I think expectations and level setting is key. The Lakers are picking up wins against teams that they should beat, and at the
yeah,
same time, like I think picking up these wins early in the season against teams like the Spurs and against the Grizzlies, I think that will serve them well later on in the season.
hmm,
And it's clear Frank Vogel is trying different things. It's clear that they're trying different lineups. Obviously, to
oh yeah,
your point, Caruso is out. He's been. We really don't know what's going on with him. Like all we know is that it's a health and safety protocol thing. We've not been told that he
yeah,
has tested positive, but we have no idea when he's coming back. KCP twisted his ankle, so we don't. I think if it was the playoffs, I think they said he would be able to go. But obviously, they're not going to
yeah,
rush anybody back this early in the season. They're trying things out, and I there are some fans. As an example, I just saw one of the comments that came in. Naveed. So Naveed said Um, Montrez's defense is concerning. He plays like Enos Cantor, concerning need a backup big. And look, man, like respectfully, I disagree with you. Like I don't think Montrez has been nearly as bad as fans think. And I think that nor has Marc Gasol. Like Marc Gasol tonight was a plus 11. And to your point, Vinay, when he plays against more of a traditional, like back to the basket big, I think you really get to see his value. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that fans fell in love last season with JaVale and Dwight blocking shots off the court and jumping everywhere and catching lobs. And I get it, but like there's no reason for the Lakers to run out and sign a big man right now. Guys,
Right.
go Google who's available in terms of centers. There are none. So then what you're
Yeah, there are
saying
none.
is go trade for somebody. Who are they going to trade for like 7 games into the season? Like not
Nobody's making trades. Yeah.
yeah, like they're just trying things out. And I trying things out now. I think they have what their third best record in NBA, or it might be better now. I haven't looked at what the standings are after this game.
6-2. So there was a three-way tie. I'll check right now. There was a
Yeah.
three-way tie between the Clippers, Lakers, and Suns. Clippers are first because they have the tiebreaker over the Lakers, but Lakers will go to 6-2. I don't know if the Suns and Clippers are playing tonight, but if not, then the Lakers should be a half game
Hmm.
above it, the Clippers, so they would be one after eight games.
Yeah.
So
And the Lakers could be undefeated right now.
yeah,
Now
they really could.
I want to bring in Dorian's comment because he's right. I was just looking at this, so it's a wild plus minus for the starters versus the bench. Like all the starters had a double digit plus minus except for Schroeder, but then you look at the bench: Morris, Trez, West, and THT. Man, they had some brutal plus minuses.
Yeah,
But guys, you're gonna have those games where like the bench just isn't very good. Your supporting guys just aren't very good. But that's why
yep.
you have the luxury of having two top 5 players in the NBA. Like I
Yeah,
like
and the Clippers are currently down by 22. Kawhi's playing. Let's see. I don't think. Yeah, no Paul George, but Kawhi is playing, and they're down by 22. So if they lose, then the Lakers would move into the
right.
top spot. I don't know if the Suns are playing tonight. So yeah, they would go if they assuming that the trend stays and the Clippers lose, they'll go to 5-3. Lakers go to 6-2. So after 8 games, the Lakers will be the number one team in the Western Conference. After snoozing through this road trip, outside of maybe the first games against the Spurs and the Grizzlies, obviously.
It's so funny because we'll be the number one seed and number one team in the Western Conference. And someone asked me earlier today, what's one word I would use to describe Laker fans? And I used the word spoiled. And I'm a Lakers
Yeah,
fan, so but we have this expectation, and I get it, man. Like we've had a lifetime of, if you're old enough to remember, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Elgin Baylor, to Kareem and Magic, and Worthy, to Shaq and Kobe, to Kobe and Powell, and then now AD and LeBron. It's just like the expectations for the Lakers to like blow people out, and for everybody on their roster to be like a plus 20 and to be able to defend all 5 positions and do whatever you need them to do. Guys, it's not reasonable. Yet this team is going to be the best team in the Western Conference by the end of the night. Like they're okay. Like I, I what is there to nitpick about at this point? Um,
yeah, and I think so I'll play the devil's advocate position for this because I think I understand the concern, and so one of the things that I think that maybe this may be a little helpful is last season the reason why JaVale and Dwight's defense was so important, right, was because we couldn't score. So
mhm.
we had to beat teams on the defensive end. We couldn't outscore other teams. There was never a game where the Lakers, outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron, they had somebody they could go to and say, "Yo, just go carry the offense for a little while, and we'll finish this game out." We had no way of preserving leads or extending leads. Like maybe every now and then we would get a game where that was really good, but the
Yep.
importance of JaVale and Dwight was significant because we had to win games on the defensive end. If we did not we just weren't going to win. And the luxury that the Lakers have this time is they don't have to, right?
Hmm.
Like before we started before we started the stream, you mentioned it, and it's a phrase that we keep using. The margin for error for this team, because it has so much, because it has a variety of scoring, and a variety of different styles of offenses that it can go into is very large.
Mhm.
Last season, the Lakers' margin for error was not as big when LeBron and Anthony Davis weren't on the court. Obviously, that changed in the playoffs because Rondo improved, Kuzma improved, all these guys improved. KCP became an outstanding
Yep.
off-ball player and stuff like that for the Lakers. So, like there is a version of this team that is going to sleepwalk through a lot of these seasons. Now we
Yep.
haven't gotten blown out yet, but we may run into a team that's like an uber offense, like the Nets, where we may get blown out, in a game. And what's going to end up happening is people are going to turn around and say, "Well, this team is not real because look at them; they just got blown out by this other team." But you just have to understand, like this is, not that you have to understand, but all I can do is give you the same insight, and I'm sure Alex would say the same insight that we have from seeing this happen with Kobe and Shaq.
Yep.
Phil Jackson, Kobe, Shaq, and the role players, they knew exactly what it took to win a championship because they had done it just the year prior. And they understood the importance of a regular season and staying healthy in a regular season. So I understand that some of these wins are not going to be pretty. Like we're gonna play the Spurs again, okay, on Thursday. This will be the third time playing them in like the last 6 days and 7 days.
Hmm.
I won't be surprised if we lose. I told you that I
I
wouldn't be
agree.
surprised if we lost the second game to the Spurs, and that game was significantly closer. But the point of this regular season is purely to build chemistry and to get better as a team. Whatever reps these guys are supposed to be getting in training camp, they're just, or in the preseason, or when they're supposed to be practicing on their off days, they're not going to get it because a condensed schedule means that they don't get enough time to do practices or film sessions the same way they normally would. They're playing four. This is week two or week three. Okay, this is week 2 or week 3 of the NBA, right? Starting,
Hmm.
they're playing 4 games in 7 days. 4 games. Where do you find time to practice? And they're traveling, so they're in Memphis. They have to go back to LA. They have to play 2 games in LA, and then they have to go back on the road. So it's like they're not getting practice time. So we're literally watching them practice in live ball situations where wins and losses are actually on the record. So that's
And
that's kind of the way that we have to approach it.
well, and the coaches have talked about when they go into different cities, but different states. Some states they're not allowed to have more than 10 people in a room, so they can't practice. I mean, for the
Yeah,
arenas, they're allowed they special privileges, I guess, but they can't. They can't. They're not allowed to practice in the hotels or walk through things, and so everything is right. Everything they're doing is like literally on the fly,
yep.
and you can't expect it to be perfect. And you look at their schedule. I would be look. They should beat the Spurs when they play them on the 7th. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose because it could be really hard to get up again for the team you just saw a couple nights ago back to back, right? But they've got the Spurs, they got the Bulls, and then they've got the Rockets in a back to back, right? I mean, then they have the Thunder and the Pelicans, and then the Warriors. They could go undefeated during that stretch, or they could drop a game or two during that stretch. And then they've
Hmm.
got the Bucks, which will be the Bucks is probably going to be their first significant game since game 1 of the season when they played the Clippers. And then after that, the Bulls and Cavaliers again. Like I don't know if we're gonna learn anything from this team this early. It's just gonna take time. I think that all we can look at this team and say is they've got 2 top 5 players. LeBron somehow is still playing like he might be the best player in the world. Anthony Davis looks like he's just coasting, and the coaching staff looks like they're trying different things. They've got a couple guys in and out of the lineup. This is by far a finished product, and I thought that many Lakers fans would have saw that last year. The Lakers team we saw in the finals was not the Lakers team we saw on opening night against the Clippers last year.
No, definitely not. Yeah, it's. I agree with you, man. It's if you look at this regular season, yeah, just like Tyrell just said, like if you look at this season, um, like at least maybe the first 20 games, or I don't know, however many games before they actually feel like they've got it all under control and they've got the lineups figured out. Um, it's just live. It's like we're watching practices, we're watching scrimmages. Like the energy is like a preseason style energy.
Yep.
Obviously, the wins and the losses will matter to many of these teams. For the Lakers, the wins and losses really won't matter. And don't forget, this is a luxury that we had last season too. When the Lakers were ripping off 7 wins and 1 loss, and then 10 wins and 1 loss, they afforded them the luxury to punt games once the bubble started up again. And then there was a lot of fear, if you guys remember, oh, look, the Lakers don't look good. I think they finished like 2-8 or 3-7 or 2-6 or like they had a losing record in the bubble regular season games. People are like, well, are we
Yep.
sure that this team is all together and stuff like that? And just like that, they dropped that first Portland game, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, maybe the trends are all true. They're not ready, and then they rip it all off, and it's very very hard to um these guys are professional athletes, so I get it. They get paid millions and millions of dollars, and so we expect like excellence. But it's very hard, man. Like even us, we work like I work a desk job, or not desk job. Like I work in an office and I have my own job. Sometimes it's hard just to get up, man, to
Yep.
work some days. Doesn't mean you're not gonna work. It just means you're gonna kind of allocate your priorities throughout the days to get the stuff done that you want to get done. And these NBA players are no different, and they're having to travel. They have to do the whole COVID testing every single day that they're out there. They have a limited amount of places that they can even go eat when they're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know, of course, the very most they're away from their families. Like they're and not being able to. And this is after already being in a very tightened bubble environment. So I get it, man. Like I understand. They're gonna have a game, man. I'm sure the Lakers are gonna have a game where they get blown out by somebody. They're like one of the only teams that hasn't gotten blown out yet. I think.
Yep.
Like the Nets that have gotten. I think the Nets have gotten blown out.
They got
Milwaukee, I
about
think
a
is got,
Hawks. Hawks blew up the Nets.
yeah. So like they're all these teams, the Bucks, the Clippers, the Suns, the Jazz, many of these teams have all gotten blown out, but like, and the Lakers haven't. Like unless you want to count like the Clippers game, which I wouldn't because it was very late when they
Championship
pulled
night.
away and stuff. Yeah, but the Lakers really haven't gotten blown out in a game end to end, so it's gonna happen eventually. But we just gotta what's it called? Like roll with the time, roll with the flow, go with the flow, whatever it is, and don't don't be afraid because I genuinely am watching this team and I'm like, man, like we started the second half off and don't think LeBron had taken very many shots in the first half. The second half, like the first 5 plays, he's like, nah, I'm just gonna hold the ball the entire time and I'm gonna find a shot for myself. And I was just like, all right, I guess that's the offense that we're playing to start the second half. But this team will go as the superstars go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our staff is letting these guys know that look, these teams when we get them on these back-to-back style series and stuff like that, the second game, especially if we win the first one, they're going to be coming for blood. So we got to be safe and make sure that we don't get hurt in the process and stuff like that.
Well, so this is something that I didn't really consider with their practicing. Mike Trudell said that the daily testing is messing up the Lakers' practices. So I mean, that's something that we should consider because that's not going anywhere, probably for the foreseeable future. And it looks like we got a Alex Caruso update as well. So he is going to be back, I believe, for the Rockets, mini series. But let me pull up Vogel's quote. So Mimi, thank you. You are great in the chats with all this information. Vogel said he thinks that Alex Caruso will be available for the Lakers when they return from this road trip. So when they return from this road trip, who do we have back at home? Spurs, right?
We'll get Spurs. So we got the Spurs, and then we've got
Bulls is in
the
Chicago,
Bulls.
right? Or is that
No,
at
no, Bulls
home?
are at home also.
Okay.
In LA. So it's a 2-game homestand for the Lakers, and then sorry, I had it up on another screen, and then I lost it because I was checking the scores. This is what I get for multitasking, folks. It's 2020, and this stuff is ruining my life. Okay, so we got, Lakers are at home against the Spurs, home against the Bulls, and then we've got a game 2 games in a row at Houston, in Houston, and then we got to go play. So it's a 3-game road trip because we got to go Rockets, Thunder, and then we come back home for another 2-game homestand, the Pelicans, and then the Warriors. And so that'll round out all the way up until the 18th. So we've got 2 games at home, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 games at home, 4 games on the road, basically for like our next 8 games. Just small series, like just kind of fit in there and stuff like that. So I mean, the Rockets road trip's not bad because we have 2 games at the same place, and then we have only 1 game at Thunder. But the Spurs Bulls game, It's
Mm-hmm.
a Thursday, Friday, so it's a back to back. So, what sort of energy do the Lakers come out with against the Bulls on a back to back? We saw what happened against the Grizzlies, or was it the Grizzlies or the Spurs? I forgot which one was the back to back.
It was the Grizzlies. No, neither one
No, no, no,
were
no, it was the
well.
Blazers. It was the Blazers.
Yeah,
Blazers.
yeah.
So the back to back was Lakers eviscerated the Wolves, and then the next game was against the Blazers, which was the back to back. And that was the one where we came out completely discombobulated on the defensive end and stuff like that. So could we possibly beat the Spurs and then immediately lose to the Bulls? Maybe. It just depends on what the energy looks like for this team, and just kind of what happens at the end of the Spurs game. But if KCP is able to come back healthy and he's able to play for the Spurs in the Bulls game, that'll make a difference because that'll help kind of add some more wings and some more energy to our rotation and stuff like that. But we just got to take it. Yeah, look for like small incremental things that kind of make this team better. The trend of Kuzma getting a block every single game from the help side,
Man.
wonderful. Because even though I think he got called for a block and a foul, or a foul, but it's still a good play. It's a really great play on his end that he's like more engaged on the defensive end when it comes to that kind of stuff.
So one, I want to give a shout out to Omar who did a video for Laker Central, the first one he's done
Oh
for
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so one, he's a Lakers fan that's in Boston, so he's behind enemy lines, man. So one, shout out to Omar out in Boston, but that's something he talked about. Kuzma's weak side help defense, man, it's been way better this year than in previous seasons, and he's getting all these crazy blocks. And do you think that's something that's sustainable this season for him?
If he's engaged, so I think one of the things that's been very good to see is even though his scoring has been up and down, and we've already said, look, as long as the more minutes he spends with LeBron and AD, I wouldn't count on him putting up a lot of points outside of like the spot situations that they call for him and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But there was a concerted adjustment that was made by the Grizzlies in this game from last game. Like Kuzma got loose for like 3 or 4 designed action cuts and all that kind of stuff, and then he got in foul trouble against the Grizzlies. So he was like Gasol, he couldn't play for long stretches of the game. But in this game today, they weren't going to let him shoot the ball. Like they were pressing up on a lot of his jumpers. Even the air ball that he had was a really nice
Yeah.
designed action. But you see the Grizzlies player like rushing to close him out because they don't want him to get loose. And he is an X factor in the sense that like when teams start falling asleep and zoning in a little bit too much on LeBron and AD, guys like him and Schroeder, they're going to get loose. And um, that's a good thing. And I'm glad that there was some initial apprehension about Kuzma playing in this starting lineup with KCP out and then not going to that spot, not going to like Wes Matthews or something like that. But when we look at a team like the Grizzlies, who plays a guy like Dylan Brooks, who's a
Mm-hmm.
bigger wing and not a guard in the true sense, Kuzma is a good play. Like that's the kind of guy that we're gonna play Kuzma against. And um, Wes Matthews was great because his energy was he was high energy, super aggressive.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, when Brooks thought that okay, maybe now I can get loose, he like it's that platoon situation that we like to talk about, where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like we're hitting you with this constant level of energy on the defensive end that you never get a break. Like you don't get comfortable. You don't get to go, oh, okay, finally they put a guy who's not that good on me, so I can chill out, or not chill out, but like maybe I'll get some better quality shots for myself or something like that. And the Lakers are just not going to allow that. And that's how they approached the center position last year. They just said, we're just going to play whatever center we have to play in order to win this game. We don't care who it is. And we don't care what their counting stats are. We don't care how many points or rebounds that they put up, or we don't even care how many blocks they put up. We just want to make sure that you never get any quality layups at the rim. That's all that matters. And that's the way the Lakers are going to approach this season. They're going to use all the bodies they can to keep everybody fresh.
So Daniel said that he thinks Kuz is making a case to stay in the starting lineup. You think that? You think he is, Vinay?
I think he's making a case. He's making a case that if the Lakers ever need to, in a series, make a switch,
Mm-hmm.
I have his size start with them. They can feel confident that he'll know how to play defensively next to him. Now he hasn't been like a superstar defensive guy. But if for the folks that are always in these pre games or post games with us, Like we've talked about his comp being a guy like Danny Green, like a guy who can check guys that aren't like amazing ball handlers, like a Paul George. Like he can't really defend a guy like a Paul George. He can't really defend a guy like Luka because those guys have really elite level handles and they're gonna get by Kuzma, and Kuzma's not that kind of defender. But a guy who's not as good of a ball handler that Kuzma can stay in front of are the kind of guys that like a Dylan Brooks type of guy is somebody that he can defend and stuff like that. So um, it just gives Vogel some confidence that look, I could throw this guy out there if I need to,
Mm-hmm.
and I can be confident that he won't just make a whole bunch of boneheaded mistakes and stuff like that when it comes to it. So I think that's good. I just don't he's not I don't think he's going to start only because KCP brings a level of energy to that starting lineup that even LeBron and Anthony Davis don't bring
I
because of
agree.
the speed change. So when LeBron and Anthony Davis are slowing down just because they're tired or fatigued, that's when guys like Schroeder and KCP they just take over, man, and they push they go on these crazy speed runs in transition. We've seen them start developing some natural chemistry with each other also too as well, and it allows a guy like Marc Gasol to be like the best version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets a defensive rebound, that outlet passes out of his hands like within a second. Like he already knows where that ball is going, so it works to their advantage. I like the fact that the Lakers balance out the speed and the power and stuff like that with that starting lineup. So I really wouldn't move Kuz. And he is pretty much the primary backup for LeBron, at least from like a scorer, uh, designed action, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't start him, but I think it does give Vogel the confidence to know that look, if I need to play him in a pinch, I can trust this guy to do his job.
So Mimi wants to know: do we think that LeBron and AD will average less than 25?
That is a good question. I think they're at some point they're going to eclipse that 25 mark or they'll average right around that amount. I don't think AD is going to go off for 30 points a game. I don't think LeBron's going to go off for 30 points a game. Assuming there's no major injury or something like
Right.
that and then one of them has to carry on a heavy load. I think they'll definitely have some games where they stand out scoring wise, but genuinely, it seems like they don't care. Like I tweeted this out before, through 7 games, it doesn't seem like they care about their counting stats. It seems like 80 is much more intent on making sure his jump shot is right. Like he's been taking, like today, he took 10
10
threes,
threes.
which is an
Crazy.
enormous amount. Yeah, but he made I think 4 of them. Right, he went
Yep.
4 for 3
Yep.
from 3. So like like that's pretty good. Like
Mm-hmm.
for your guy to go that way, and he one of those threes was off in the corner towards the end of the game where like
Yeah.
the Lakers needed to build a lead and stuff like that. So again, he was clutch with it. Um, I just to answer Mimi's question, I think they will. I don't think they'll average less than 25. I think they'll hit 25 at some point when things continue to get rolling. But I'm just genuinely surprised that they're very casual about like their
Mm-hmm.
counting stats and stuff like that. Like LeBron entered not this game, but the game prior, LeBron entered the game with only 9 points going into the fourth quarter. And then he's just like, all right, let me do my thing. And he hit a bunch of threes and they finished at like, I think he finished with 22 or something like that. And yeah, you're right. They took 20 shots. Um, but it just depends. Like, if they're not going to the rim and drawing fouls, not getting a bunch of free throws, like the Lakers didn't get that many free throws tonight, right? So
Only
like if they're
11
preserving
tonight.
their yeah, if they're trying to preserve their bodies and just like not really try to do too much in the painting area, just because they don't want to get walloped on a night to night basis by the defense, they may not. They just may be comfortable just taking those short mid range shots or the long threes or whatever it is. LeBron's been taking a lot more threes, I think, right? Having his 3 point average has gone up this season, and I
Yep.
feel like the volume of threes he's taking has gone up too, depending on who he plays against. But I could be wrong there. But I think they'll cross that 25 point. They had 26 tonight. It'll just depend on like which team they play. Like if Schroeder's going and Kuzma's going, and or even if just Schroeder and Montrez are going, like I don't know like if they're really gonna try too hard. But if they're having bad games, like Schroeder didn't have a great game today. Montrez was like a little up and down in terms of his scoring
Mm-hmm.
tonight. He wasn't as involved. Um, that's where you probably see them step up. But we may get nights where like it's Schroeder and like Wes Matthews going off, or it's like Kuzma and Montrez going off. So it's a luxury that they have, and they get to pick and choose when they want to be involved.
I mean, I think that so right now, AD is averaging 21.7 points and LeBron is averaging 23.6. So I mean, LeBron's not that far from 25, and AD, a couple
Yeah,
more shots and he's gonna hit 25. It's just so
yeah,
early that they're winning without them needing to score 25 points a night. And I found this
yeah.
interesting as well. The Lakers are the only team in the top five offensively and defensively. They're second in off coming into this game. They were second in offensive efficiency and fifth in defensive efficiency. Like for you to have two all-world players like LeBron and Anthony Davis, and they're not scoring 25 or 30 a night, and for your offense to be the second best in the NBA,
It's pretty good.
this with all these new pieces, that means you're rolling already. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and you look at these games, and you can obviously pick out points and spots where they need to improve. Like that's just gonna happen. But
right.
they're clearly really good already. And I think if LeBron and Anthony Davis felt like they needed to score 30 a night, they would go out there and score 30 a night. But they don't need to. And so,
Yeah,
what's the point in pressing it? I think as we get closer to All-Star game, well, there won't be an All-Star game this year, but as we get close to the de facto All-Star game and All-Star weekend, that's probably when you'll start to see their points per game average go up a bit. But it also will depend on how many
yeah.
games how many not how many games they rest, but minutes played. If they're blowing teams out and Schroeder and Trez are rolling and Kuz is rolling, then But what remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, and so like even if we use so let's say we use the general theory that the more that the Lakers go to the rim, which is fair, the more the Lakers go to the rim, the more they draw fouls because we have super athletes and you have to foul them. You can't let them get easy layups and stuff like that. So they get to the
Mm-hmm.
free throw line. Anthony Davis through 7 games, and this will be the 8th game, so I'll have to wait for it to be updated. Um, he normally averages about 8 free throws a game. So far through 7 games, he's averaging barely over 4, barely. So his 3 point shooting is he's still averaging maybe about half a 3 point attempt more than he
Mm-hmm.
did. That probably will go up significantly after this game. And he's shooting them at an absurd clip, right? He's shooting them at like near 40% 3 point clip. But the trade off is he's not going to the rim. So he's making his threes, but he's not going to the rim. So his free throw numbers are suffering. So if he makes a couple extra threes instead of going to the line as much, those are just free throw opportunities on a shooting foul is always 2 points, but he's
Yep.
only getting one extra point for every extra three that he's trading for his jump shots and stuff like that. So if you balance out all the math, basically what we're learning is that these guys are not going to the rim because they're making their shots. And so until they start missing their shots, they're not going to go to the rim because they don't want to get all beat up and stuff like that as the game goes on. And LeBron's pretty much, I think, at the same number that he normally has been. Um, but the stuff that puts them in that territory where they're averaging 25, 30 is them drawing free throws, getting to the line repeatedly and stuff like that. And they just haven't. And it's not because they can't. It's just they haven't needed to. Like if Anthony Davis continues to shoot 40% from three, when we move him to center, I don't think people realize what's going to happen. Like having a center that's a defensive player of the year candidate player and can shoot 40% from three is um is absolutely nuts. Like that's somebody where if you did like a whole redraft, he would go
Mm-hmm.
like number 1 or number 2. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
at least Anthony Davis' size. So I trust these guys to know what they're doing, and they're just going with what defenses are giving them. And under all of this, I would say the most important thing that they're trying to do is they're trying to give their teammates a chance to get acclimated to whatever the new way of playing is. So they want Montrez to get his reps. They want Schroeder to attack the rim and stuff. Like Schroeder wasn't very aggressive tonight, like in the way that he
No,
normally
it
has
wasn't.
been, other than maybe that one play that got called for a goaltend or whatever it was. Um, he's been pretty. He was like kind of timid, not timid, but maybe like a little more casual tonight too as well. So, I think the Lakers were done with the road trip. They were stuck in San Antonio, which is historically not an amazing place to go for a road trip. Um, and then they were in Memphis, but I don't know how much they got to go out and stuff like that or do anything. Even Memphis is supposed to be great, but so I'm sure that they just want to go home, and I'm sure that they'll be I would hope that they're more refreshed and more excited for the Spurs game when they're at home. They get to go home, sleep in their own beds, spend time with their family and stuff like that, and get to kind of recharge. And maybe the back to backs on Thursday, or the back to back on Thursday, Friday, we'll see a refreshed team. We'll see a team with a little bit more energy because they're just tired. Have you seen that Mike Trudell? Like he mentioned it. I want to say it was on the LFR pod, but he may have mentioned it on Spectrum. I can't remember what it was, but he mentioned that like the Lakers were so used to going on these road trips and going to places like San Antonio and Memphis and stuff like that, and just seeing tons of Laker fans like in the crowd and stuff like that because Laker fans will travel, and like they don't see that anymore. So like to get that energy from like fans and stuff like that, and to not have that ability, like that is very like it's a different experience for them to have to go through, and maybe it's the reason why LeBron always says like I would rather play in front of fans more than assuming it was safe. Obviously, maybe that's what it is. So I don't know.
So the other day, I don't know if it was it might have been TNT. They showed a stat, and basically, like the home teams had a worse record at home than on the road, and they went on to talk about how like you players can't say that like they don't care about playing in front of fans. Like that energy you get from playing in front of your home crowd and in front of your fans clearly can power you when you're having kind of a sluggish night or an off night and you get an injection from the crowd. The Lakers, there is no other team in the NBA that travels like Laker fans. I mean, there are other sports like the Cowboys and NFL, the Steelers, the Patriots. Um,
Hey man, I went to a Grizzly. I would travel to Chicago in the middle of February, and I'd never been to in proper Chicago during that time. First of all, I didn't realize how freaking cold it is over there. But me, my wife, my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, we went because my wife has family in Chicago and stuff like that.
Mhm.
We went to a we went to a Bulls Grizzlies game when they were the two worst teams in the league because we got tickets really cheap. We sat like five rows from courtside basically. We were dressed in Lakers gear, so Laker fans are gonna show up wherever in
Oh
our
yeah.
gear. It doesn't even matter.
I mean, Lakers fans, we travel, man. I mean, look, when I went to Madison Square Garden last year, there were plenty. Even though it's famous Knicks arena, and there were plenty of Knicks fans there. There were Lakers
Yeah,
fans there when I was at the Wells Fargo Arena in Philly. The night LeBron passed Kobe on the all-time scoring list, there was plenty of Lakers fans there. Now we lost that night, and as we were walking to our Uber, I was getting heckled because I had on a Lakers jacket and all that stuff. And I'm
I
sure
love
fans
Knicks
know.
fans. Knicks are like they're not my next favorite team, but I love my next favorite team is probably the Hawks because my wife is from Atlanta.
Hmm.
But I like rooting for the Knicks because I feel like Knicks fans are like Laker fans. They love their team, man. Like
Hmm.
you can't take them away from their team, but it's just they've got such a bad odor. But I hope that they're doing better this year. So I've been watching some of their games.
This is a bit of a tangent. Funny thing about the Knicks now that they're good. So shout out to CP who runs Knicks Fan TV. Um, CP expelled Michael Rappaport from Knicks fandom, and now Rappaport's going back and forth with him. It's a whole funny thing going on, man. Because Rappaport went to some Brooklyn games wearing KD jersey and all that stuff. So
Oh my God.
it's a
Michael
funny thing now that the Knicks are good again.
Rappaport's hilarious. He plays such a funny heel, man. When he goes on the few times I've seen him on Skip, and
Hmm.
I don't want Skip and Shannon because I can't stand Skip anymore. It's just too much now for me. But when Michael Rappaport goes out there and he makes his jokes and stuff like that, and he'll just start randomly pulling out stats and scenarios that are like have nothing to do with current era basketball. It's so funny. And then what's it, Shannon will always be like, "Well, what about your Knicks?" And be like, "Why do you got to go there, man? Why we got to talk about the Knicks? We're here to I hope that look, man, the Knicks being good is good for the league. So it's important that the number one valued franchise in the NBA have competitive basketball on there. And I watched the Atlanta New York game last night.
Hmm.
It was a great game. Knicks look great. They've got some young kids that are like really really good. Emmanuel quickly looks good. Julius Randle clearly playing because he wants his next contract. So I get why he's playing good. Uh, they're a good team, man. I hope they continue to improve.
So, Laker fans, I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but I do think it's relevant since we were talking about the Knicks and Hawks and all that stuff. Vinay, did you see the league is considering expansion, and it looks like they're seriously considering. So, guys, if you don't know, the Minnesota Timberwolves have been up for sale now for a few months, and
Mm-hmm.
the league apparently is kind of waiting to see how much they go for to make a decision on what they're going to set these potential expansion fees for these new teams. But it's being reported that Seattle and Vegas is willing to put in bids for expansion teams, and the bidding will start off at 2.5 billion, which is a
Yeah.
crazy amount. But how do you feel about the league possibly expanding, man? Me personally, we don't. Both of those markets should have teams. Let me say that.
For sure. Yeah, I
But
agree. Yeah.
but to follow up, I think the league's already watered down. I think there are too many teams as it stands. But
So
go,
So I'll tell you what, I'm actually of an opposite mind of what you're saying.
really,
I think the talent that is coming into the league right now is not talent that requires 4 years of development. So I'll give you an example. I think LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, um, Patrick Williams, a kid that's in Chicago, uh, a couple of these other guys, and then looking at some of the rookies that we've had historically, even the guys like Trey Young, guys like Luka Doncic, um, these kids are ready. Okay, like if Trey Young doesn't turn around and tell, and I'll give you the Hawks example. The Hawks, they got Trey, they got Cam, they made the trade with the Pelicans to get DeAndre Hunter. They already
mm-hmm.
had Jason Collins there. If Trey doesn't turn around and tell the Hawks, start getting veterans, like guys that want to win, and start trying to win these games. If he doesn't say that, Atlanta's not making the moves for Bogdan. They're not making moves for Gallinari. Like overpaying probably for those guys essentially. And I don't know how much of that is the pressure from Clutch. I like to say it's pressure from Clutch because Clutch will basically get their clients out of there if you're not about
Yep.
winning. And Trey does seem like he's a kind of kid who wants to win. He doesn't want to put up 30 a night just to keep losing on his way to what's it called? Like on his way to like a max contract. He wants
Right.
to win and get that max contract at the same time, not be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And I think the talent that's coming into the league is much better than people realize. And what's actually hurting some of these guys is that they're now getting drafted into situations where they can't really be stars. Okay. So a guy like Ant-Man is playing in Minnesota and he's playing behind D'Angelo Russell. He's not playing behind Ricky Rubio because they're both point guards in the way they play him. But Minnesota has Malik Beasley, they have Ant-Man, they have Rubio, and they have D'Angelo Russell.
Mm-hmm.
And though he may get 20 minutes to 30 minutes a game, like the consistency in the role, you know what I mean, is not quite there necessarily. Minnesota drafted Jarrett Culver, who is another hybrid 2-3 kind of guy. Ant-Man can play both. He can play 2 or 3. He's a big wing style player. Like, if he goes to a team like Vegas, his numbers are going to be great because he's ready to play. He's an NBA basketball player. And so I wonder if some of these guys – because I think the talent that's coming into the league is so good, um, I think that expansion is going to become necessary, and I'll give you the reason why. This next upcoming draft, there's going to be the Cade Cunningham, the Evan Mobley, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that there's one other guy that everybody's talking about. Um, those three kids are going to go to a franchise that probably already has a guy that's sitting in there in that spot. Like if Memphis tanks out, Cade Cunningham or Evan Mobley or one of these guys are going to go get. It's going to be Jarrett. Let's say the Grizzlies get the first pick. It's going to be Ja Morant. It's going to be Dylan Brooks. You already have a kid in Brandon Clark who's
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. That's already there. They have Justice Winslow who's already there, and then you have Jaren Jackson Jr. You have Jonas Valanciunas. So it's like you're going to get a really good player, but now you have so many guys with competing interests. Some guys are trying to get their first extension, and you have a kid who looks like he's supposed to be a superstar, outright when he comes into the league and stuff like that. So it's like I think that because the quality of players coming into the league are good, the ones that are the one and done guys and all that sort of stuff, I think expansion is necessary. Do I think that some of these other teams will be watered down a little bit because of it? For sure. Like I don't expect certain teams to just come. Vegas and Seattle start next year. Like I don't expect them to be amazing, like off rip. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like even when Kevin Durant his first season when he got drafted to the Sonics were terrible. They sucked.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they ended up getting James Harden and Russell Westbrook. But it's necessary in terms of like spreading the talent out. And I think the league is in a really good place right now where every team that has basically two stars, and basically two stars, you could, I mean, we're Laker fans, so we're gonna say none of the two stars match up to our best two stars. But you can say conceivably that there's a lot of parity at the league, and what separates an elite team from a not an elite team, if they have two stars, is their role players and their coaching, and that's good for the league. So I don't think it's going to be too watered down. I think I wonder if they've learned their lesson. I think I'll tell you this, more than more than the league being watered down, the NBA has to make sure, like, and when I say make sure, I mean like absolutely make sure that whoever they sell these franchises to or allow to start these franchises, they have to be committed to winning basketball games.
So
They
that's what
cannot be committed to just making business revenue.
that's where I was gonna go, man. Because here's my thing: if they're just gonna bring in billionaires that treat franchises like hedge funds, then what difference does it make if you're adding more teams? Hey, look, guys, often it's not often if Vinay and I disagree. I don't know if we ever really disagree. So this is let's see where this where this.
It's not a disagreement. It's just two different opinions. I think that's how I always frame it in my mind.
Um, the only reason I think the league is considering expansion right now is because they're hurting for revenue. And what's a quick way to make up revenue? Have two owners give you $5 billion, right? Like that, because that
Right.
money's going to end up getting divided up amongst other owners. So that's the only reason I think that they're doing this right now. Because Seattle has wanted a team there for. Seattle never wanted the Supersonics to leave. No one wanted the Supersonics to leave. So to
Right.
me, that's a money grab. Secondly, the Clippers have been in the basement of LA, not just like the basement of the Staples Center, but like basically all LA sports for
LA
a
sports, yeah.
lifetime. And you had a Seattle guy from Microsoft come in and buy them. The league could have worked something out with him and moved them back to Seattle. And then Vegas, like I get why for years no one wanted to, the leagues didn't want teams in Vegas, but now with the Raiders there and gambling and everything is okay. So like I get why you want a team in Vegas, but even Vegas, man, Vegas is really just LA North. Like there's a ton of Lakers fans in Vegas. So I don't even know putting a team in Vegas makes any real sense in terms of fans. I mean, look, if the league really cared about like guys like Anthony Edwards and all these guys going to teams that already have other lottery picks, then they need to rearrange the draft. Stop allowing bad teams to keep getting lottery picks. Like, say for example, you can only be in a lottery 3 years in a row, and after that, then you go to the next group or whatever. Like, I think there's interesting ways you can go about this. Like we always talk about the glory days of the 90s. Those of us that remember how great the 90s were. Well, the 90s, like one of the reasons the 90s were great, like you could get Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman on the same team because there were less teams. The same reason you can get Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, and Larry Bird, or James Worthy, Kareem, and Magic on the same team because there were less teams to go around. I can see how Seattle and Vegas could support teams. I do see a path there, but I do wonder if they open it up to some of those smaller cities. There are already smaller cities struggling. That I don't know. I don't know where this goes, and so you think that you think that it has a lot to do with these guys being ready to go now, like these players being ready now, and they need a
Yeah.
platform or a team to be able to play on, and that's why the
Yeah.
league is doing this. You don't think that it has a lot to do with the league just trying to pocket money and make up for lost
No,
revenue?
yeah, I think it does have to do with that. My concern is just that you're going to do that, and you're going to get like a Jeff Bezos type guy who's going to want to buy a team and stuff like that. But I want the purpose, or what is the phrase? Like I want the mission for anybody who buys an NBA team to play winning basketball.
Sure, I agree.
Like yeah, I don't want guys that are comfortable with just kind of spinning the wheels and stuff
Mhm.
like that, and trying to maximize the revenue, or try to get to add a write off sort of investment for their portfolio because they can they don't want to get taxed on whatever billions of dollars that they make and stuff like that. And that was part of the issue that I thought with. Now look, there are some owners that are just bad. Okay, Michael Jordan is a terrible owner. Whatever decisions he makes, he's just really, really bad. I think he wants to win, but I think he doesn't understand how he needs to let the reins go and not
Mhm.
be part of the process when it comes to making these decisions. That's fine. I get that. Even with the Kings, like Vivek Ranadiv, like he famously is the guy who picked Stauskas. Like they did that whole interview and stuff like that about how they came to. He had the final say on
Mhm.
who they're going to draft. Stauskas was like out of the league, like before
Yep.
his rookie contract was even done. So it's just like, um, I understand like all that, and owners want to be involved and stuff like that. But I just, I want them to find people who are invested in winning basketball, who want to win. It would be great if it's people who are like from the community, also
Yeah.
like somebody from Seattle, because that means something to them. Somebody from Vegas, that means something for them. But we know, many of these billionaires don't look like you and I, and so sometimes their interests don't necessarily align with whatever the general public wants. Um, so it's just that's my only thing. I think the talent is there. Like teams can build talent with smart front offices. The other reason why I like the idea of expansion is because it opens up more opportunities for guys that look like you and me to get
Sure.
positions
I.
within these companies. You know, um, Steven Silas went to Houston, and everybody said the reason why he went to Houston is because Tillman Fertitta is cheap because he's hemorrhaging money from not having any
Mhm.
of his restaurants open and stuff like that. But Steven Silas is a pretty good coach. Houston doesn't look that bad, and if
Mhm.
not for some things that they're doing the same thing, basically doing
Right.
live practices, uh, they're a pretty good team. Their analytics folks paid that money for Christian Wood, and that guy looks like he could be a top five center in the
Looks
league
great. Yep.
with the way they can play. So it's that's the kind of stuff that like I want to see that folks that are smart people get more opportunity because it's tough, man. Like me and you and I do a Lakers podcast, and you know how it is. But think about how many Lakers podcasts there are. Like
Mhm.
it's such a competitive landscape or it's such a
Yep.
saturated landscape, and we're doing this on our own time. But imagine how hard it is to get a position on an NBA team if you've been
Agreed.
languishing away as a scout for another team. So um, I think it's good for the league. I think the Pacific Northwest loves basketball. I have a lot of friends in Portland. Portland loves basketball. They love soccer. They love like these agility sports and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
know Seattle's the same way. A lot of really great players in the history of the NBA have come out of the Pacific Northwest. And so I think it would be great. I like it. I understand that it's probably a business move first because they need to offset some of these losses. But I think the talent is there where it won't be as watered down as it could potentially be, like when they did the expansion earlier, 20 years ago, 30 years ago when they did it.
Well, I think one thing's for sure. I was talking to some friends earlier, and I think Jeff Bezos made $87 billion in 2020.
Yeah,
87
you could
billion.
buy like
So,
5 teams if you wanted. Yeah.
and the world's trillionaires, according to Forbes, made 1.9 trillion in 2020. And when you make that kind of money, you need somewhere to throw it around. And there are only 30 NBA franchises. There's only so many sports franchises in general. And look, there's only so many houses and Bugattis and yachts you can own.
Yeah.
Like you stand like when you're a billionaire and you own an NBA franchise, you stand out even more. And so I think for the NBA, clearly they're recognizing that some of these billionaires have some money, more have additional money to throw around, and this is an opportunity to bring some of that money into the league. And to your point, something I did not consider. If two more franchises, that's more jobs, that's more opportunities for other people to get into the NBA that maybe otherwise they wouldn't be allowed to or have an opportunity to get into the NBA. So
Yeah,
we'll see where
yeah, and
this
if you if
goes.
you if you think about it from like a investing in your own personal legacy, like if I'm a really rich billionaire and stuff like that, the NBA pretty much already has a cookie cutter way of addressing Black Lives Matter, so
Yep.
social justice issues. Obviously, partnering with LeBron and his initiative, the More Than a Vote like they're promoting democracy and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, like civic duty and stuff like that. It's really not. I have the money, even if you don't want to do anything with it, and you just want to be the person who brought a team to the city that you're in, or to Seattle or Vegas. It's a pretty great opportunity. Like if you had no experience, like in how do I impact social justice? Buy an
Mm-hmm.
NBA team and hire the people that know what they're doing, and people will look at you and be like, "Oh my god, you're an amazing look at this billionaire. You're an amazing person."
Yep.
You may not even care, like that's the way it is. And we know some of these businesses think about their revenue before they think about stuff like social justice. So why not? And so, but of course, I think winning should always be, the most important priority. But the NBA is a very just look at how NBA players are talked about in
Mm-hmm.
sports media compared to other players.
Yep.
Anything like an NBA GM can tweet. Oh, what did Maury tweet? Free Hong Kong or Justice
Mm-hmm.
for Hong Kong or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what happened. Like, look
Yep.
at it has global ramifications when he does something like that. You're not getting that out of the NFL in that same manner. Like, and so, just it's a global product. You can increase your global footprint, and you'll be like a local hero especially if you're from wherever you're from. So I think it's a good move for the NBA. I just hope they don't get like just owners who don't give a shit about anything and just kind of are there existing and want to tank
Yeah.
continuously until they find like the next LeBron. Like that, don't do that because that's not a good way to run a franchise.
Well, one thing we know, if the league decides to expand, that's just more teams for the Lakers to poach superstars from. I mean, just more fan bases to be upset that their number one draft pick in 4 or 5 years wants to be a Laker. So
Hey man, well, what can we do? Well, all we can do is just let you know. Look, we can't do anything about the geography of the United States. Okay, I will tell you this though. A couple of weeks ago, it got so cold over here. It actually started snowing in Downey. I don't know if you know where Downey is. It's like probably 20 minutes south of proper LA,
mm-hmm.
down the 5 freeway. That is pretty crazy because we don't get snow like in that area. So I don't know if you're, how into science you are, but I told my wife the other day, I was just like, if it starts snowing in California, I don't think we ever have to go back to the East Coast or anything ever again because we're about to get that ridiculous weather that you guys have been suffering through for decades.
The funny thing is, like I was telling my wife the other day, like I'd like to get some snow over here. We had a little bit recently, but I did
Yeah.
see like on Twitter or something. I saw there was a really bad thunderstorm over there, and
Yeah.
I saw a
Yeah.
lot
There
of
was.
like uh, Angelinos were afraid of thunderstorms, and I'm like, yo, you guys get earthquakes. Like what the hell? Thunderstorm and lightning was scaring
Yeah.
people? Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like the torrential weather is not common like that out here, but earthquakes obviously are more common. Um, Yeah, it's just weird, man. It's just such a weird time that we're living in. That's the only way I
Like
can describe it.
we've had like where I live, we've had two 100-year storms within 3 years over here. Literally, like shit is crazy. We don't who. I mean, if you don't believe in global warming, oh, it's real. Because if you guys are getting snow, then I don't know.
That's hilarious.
But guys, thank you all so much as always for joining the post game. Vinay, you have anything you want to add or close out on?
No, man. Lakers are 6-2. I don't have much to complain about. We're going to continue sleepwalking through a lot of this season until they decide to get serious. And I think we'll see it on the court when they decide to
Mm-hmm.
get serious about stuff. But thankful for everybody that's able to join us in the chat. Appreciate you guys and appreciate seeing you guys on the timeline on Twitter or in the comments or wherever you join in with us. And I hope everybody's healthy and safe.
Guys, make sure you follow Vinay. You see his Twitter information if you're watching at VKillum. Follow me at Alex Holling. Subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the pre or post game shows that we do. We'll be back on Thursday, guys. Thanks so much, and until next time, we're out. Peace.